point. Okay, we're on Chav Zayin Amar Aleph, 10 lines into the wide line. Tfilat mincha ad erev. The Mishnah says we had two opinions when mincha, we have to pray, when the window of mincha goes. Does it go till evening or sunset, or if you didn't do it by sunset, a little bit after sunset, or is the time limited up to Plag HaMincha? Is it until 10 hours and 45 minutes into the day, which is like an hour and a quarter before sunset, depending on how long the hour is, depending on the time of the year. As we spoke about, the day is split into 12 parts, and depending how much of the day would be how much each hour would be. A 12-hour day, each hour is 60 minutes. A 10-hour day, if it's only sunrise to sunset, it's only 10 hours. Like a day like today, it's, I don't know how many, around 10 hours or so, whatever the amount of time. So therefore, each hour would be a 50-minute hour or so. So 10 hours and 45 minutes into the day is Plag HaMincha. And so there's a machlokas, what time is the window to pray Mincha? Now, based on what time you could pray Mincha to, it would be when the opening bell, not for the stock market, but the opening bell from Arvit. When could you start praying Arvit? If you say Mincha goes until the evening, then Arvit begins at evening. If you say Mincha goes until Plag HaMincha, which is like an hour and a quarter, we said, before sunset, so then Arvit could start an hour and a quarter before sunset. That's why you'll see like many synagogues, they'll pray Arvit before sunset, right? Not today, because today is the sunset is very early. But let's say in the summertime, right? They say right. Even today, when they pray Arvit after sunset, they still tell you to repeat the Shema, because three parashiyot, yes. Best to do all three parashiyot, yes. So because you might not have got the right time of the Shema, because you dive in the early end. Now, so during the summer, let's say sunset could be as late as almost 8:30. So people daven my Arvit early. So what really should be the earliest time they're allowed to daven Arvit? What's the earliest you could pray Arvit? The earliest you could pray Arvit is from Plag HaMincha. Because Plag HaMincha is the time that Rabbi Yehuda says Mincha is over. The window for Mincha is over. It's now time for Arvit. Earliest Arvit is Plag HaMincha, correct. Technically. Look at this in the summertime. What time is Plag HaMincha? Today it's an hour before sunset, depending on the time of the year. Sometimes it can be an hour and a quarter before sunset. Now, the Gemara, and we said also that's also the earliest time the lady should light candles for Shabbat. She shouldn't, right? We spoke about that, Ariel, right? That's the earliest time you light candles. The earliest time you can accept Shabbat is from Plag HaMincha time. From that Plag HaMincha, which you said is today, it's because the day is very small, so the hour is smaller. So therefore, an hour and a quarter would be an hour day would be 60 minutes. Today would be an hour and a quarter, based on the hour is a shorter hour because the day is shorter. So therefore, that's the earliest time to accept the Shabbat. So the Gemara says, Amalei Rav Chizdel Rav Yitzchak. Ben, you got it? Amalei Rav Chizdel Rav Yitzchak. It's right over here. Amalei Rav Chizdel Rav Yitzchak. Mars, everyone received your text, you think? Because we have Shmuel on. Shmuel, did everyone receive the text? They saw it, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Amalei Rav Chizdel, you have it, Ben? You have the Gemara? Hasam Amar Rav Kahana. Over there, Rav Kahana said, Halacha Rav Yehuda. Over there, regarding Tfilat Shachrit, regarding the morning prayer, Rav Kahana said, Halacha Rav Yehuda. The law follows Rav Yehuda, Hoyul utnan b'chirata kavate. Because since we learned in Maseches Idiot, it learned like Rabbi Yehuda that the time for mincha goes until 4 hours into the day. So therefore, we said Maseches Idiot is the choice. The people that are quoted there, the law follows them. So we have in the morning. So we know that it's been established. Rabbi Yehuda is the winner, so to speak. Moni Shmulik, Moni Avrami. Rabbi Yehuda is the winner when it comes to the when it comes to the dispute of what's the window of the time for Shachrit. Rabbi Yehuda won because the law follows his opinion that Shachrit, the time you should pray Shachrit, is up by 4 hours into the day. Okay, if you didn't pray by 4 hours into the day, you still pray afterwards. We said you have it till Chatzot, but you lost Zman Tfilah, right? You lost Zman Tfilah. There's a Zman, it's a time to pray, and that's up to 4 hours into the day is the window of ideal time to pray for Shachrit. What about by Mincha? Who is the winner? Who does the law follow by Mincha? What time do you have to say Mincha until? Do you have the long window of the Chachamim, which would be up to sunset or up to even a little past it if necessary, but then you have a shorter window for Arvit because you can't pray Arvit before that, or does the law follow Rabbi Yehuda that you have a shorter window for Mincha? Mincha has to end by Plag, but the longer window for Arvit, you can start praying Arvit from Plag HaMincha. Okay? Is that clear? Meaning based on what in order to get to second base, you got to get the first base. So the first question is, what time does Mincha go until? What time could you pray Mincha? Rabbi Yehuda says, you can't pray Mincha an hour before, 20 minutes before sunset, half hour before sunset. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't pray Mincha. Why? Because he says they didn't bring the Korban Mincha that time. The Korban was not brought. His opinion was, morning, Mike. His opinion was the Korban was not brought.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning, Mike. Are you still away?
Yes, on my way back.
Oh, very good. You have a safe trip. So the Gemara says. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, in the Beit HaMikdash, they only brought the Korban Mincha up to Plag HaMincha. After Plag HaMincha, it's over. So therefore, we said the Zman, when the rabbis said that you should pray Mincha, they said you should do it according to the time of the Korban. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Korban was over. You lost the deadline was Plag HaMincha. You got to bring the Korban by 10 hours and 45 minutes into the day. If you didn't bring the Korban by 10 hours and 45 minutes of the day, it's over. So therefore, Mincha will be over, Ariel. If you didn't bring it, Mincha's over, then you can start Arvit. Because Arvit is corresponding to the time that they brought the limbs that were not consumed during the day, and the fats that weren't finished consumed, they could still, because they would keep them burning them on the Mizbeach at night. But the Chachamim say no. The time that you could pray Mincha goes until the evening because the Korban Mincha was brought till the evening. So you can't pray Arvit if it's half hour before sunset. According to the Chachamim, you can't make early Arvit like we do in the summer. According to the Chachamim, the Chachamim say you cannot do that. So what is the Gemara says? But when it came to Shachrit, we had a Mishnah in Idiot that went on record like Rabbi Yehuda that says up to 4 hours into the day. But we have no record regarding Mincha. So what's the law regarding Mincha? Who do we follow? Rabbi Yehuda or the Chachamim? That is the $1 million question. Someone said today you don't talk millions, you talk billions, right? So that's the question. Who is the Hachamai? Ishtik. He was quiet. Rav Yitzchak v'lo amalei v'lo midi. So Rav Yitzchak did not know the answer to the question. was a great question. He didn't know the answer. Who the law follows? Amar Rav Chizda. So Rav Chizda says, Nerzi Anan. You know what? You don't have an answer. You have no tradition of regarding this, who the law follows. So let us try to figure it out on our own. Let us try to figure it out. Now, miderav matzli shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat mibod yom. Rav, the great Rav. You know, we have in the Gemara Rav and Shmuel. Rav is one of the great rabbis, and he prayed on erev Shabbat. Before Shabbat, he prayed the Friday night davening. He prayed Arvit while it was still daytime, before sunset. Not in the afternoon, but before sun. He prayed it, like we said, within the window of Plag HaMincha. He prayed Arvit, a Friday night davening, like let's say he did like the people do in the summer. Sunset could be 8:25, and he prayed Arvit at 7:15. So what do we see? Shema Mina, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. So we see the law follows like Rabbi Yehuda that the time for Arvit begins at Plag HaMincha. The Gemara says, so he says back, so he says, Adarabba, on the contrary. The other rabbi says, Midirav Huna, Rabbanan. We know there were other rabbis, Rav Huna Rabbanan, Lo Avi Matzli Arurta. They never prayed the night prayer until they made sure it was evening. They didn't pray Arvit while the sun was still out. They made sure the sun was gone before they prayed Arvit. So they said you can't make an early, so to speak, an early prayer for Arvit. Shema Mina ain't halacha Rabbi Yehuda. So we see that they hold that the law doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda. So we see that there's a dispute among the Amoraim, among the later rabbis. Who do we follow? Which opinion do you follow? Do you follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, or you follow the opinion of the Chachamim? So the Gemara says, Hashta, the lo itma hilchasa. Now, the law has not been established. Lo kama v'lo kama. We have no definitive no definitive law, because we see different rabbis. In the later rabbis followed each opinion. Some rabbis followed this opinion. Some rabbi followed that opinion. It wasn't universally. See, most of the time, you can have a machloket in the Gemara, a machloket in the Mishnah, but then there's a law, there's a psak. It's who do we follow? But here it comes out the Gemara saying it's not. There's no clear, definitive answer that they agreed upon, that the majority of the rabbis agreed upon. So therefore, Ovid Kama Ovid Avad. The Ovid Kama Avad. This is not so usual, but the Gemara is saying you could go either way. You could do like this rabbi or that rabbi. It's very similar today. You have sometimes, you have Rav Avadia Yosef says this opinion. I've been seeing Abba Shol says that opinion. So if one of them is your particular rabbi, so you follow your rabbi. If it's Rabbi Avadia, Abba Shol. Or it's, let's say, we got to talk the language of some other people. If it's the Ben Ish Chai, right? The Ben Ish Chai says this, and the Rav Avadia Yosef says something else. So who do you follow? Based on if you have a tradition, who you follow what you follow. But an Iraqi might follow Rav Avadia, and an Iranian might follow Ben Ish Chai, correct? Is that correct, Ben? Or an Iraqi might follow Rav Avadia Yosef, and an Iranian might follow Ben Ish Chai. I don't know if that's, again, it could be they also follow, I'm not sure how the people today in the Sephardic community follow. But the point is, sometimes some things aren't universally clear who the law follows. So you have different rabbis hold different things. A person could do if none of them is your particular rabbi, so then you follow that opinion. Now, So the Gemara says, and therefore, the Gemara is saying we have a right to go ahead, and if you want to pray Arvid early, you could go like Rabbi Huda's opinion. If you want to play, if you want to go like, if you want to follow the Chachamim, that you can't pray Arvid early, and you got a longer window for Mincha, you could do that. Now, there are those that say you can't change. You can't sometimes go ahead and today I'm going to follow Rabbi Huda's opinion and daven my Arvit before sunset because it's after Plag. And tomorrow I'm going to daven Mincha before sunset. It's contradictory. If today you went like Rabbi Huda and you said that Mincha is over at Plag, so how do you tomorrow go follow the Rabbanan's opinion that you have a longer window for Mincha? So therefore, there are those Rishonim that say that a person has to always conduct himself like one opinion. That you have to either you pick Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that the Mincha goes up to Plag, and if you can do early Arvit, or you pick the Chacham's opinion, and you should not go one day this way and one day that way. And therefore, if a person prays, if you pray Mincha later in the day before sunset, then you never could pray Arvit before evening. That would be that's what the Rishonim, many Rishonim write. However, if you're in a bind, if it's difficult for you, in certain situations where it's not simple for you to go ahead and keep to that, always the consistency every day doing either like this, Rabbi, like that, wherever you have a certain difficult situation, the post can permit you to pray, let's say, Arvit before sunset. Even a person who constantly always prays Mincha late in the day. So Arvit was the whole night, they burned the limbs and the fats that were not consumed on the Mizbeach during the day, they brought it the whole night. But the question was, what was the starting time? Right, so depending on what time they could bring the Mincha until, I mean, they always had the fats ongoing. Right, Arvit starts when Mincha ends, exactly. That's how you're going to get to second base. Arvit to second base. The question is, where does first base? Where does first base in order to start getting to second base?
90 feet.
Okay, 90 feet from home plate is first base. That's what Sammy says. Okay, thank you. Now, however, now that's one idea, but it's much more problematic that people should be very, I would say it needs to be sensitive to a different point. In being contradictory on the same day. What does it mean on the same day? If let's say today, what time is Plag HaMincha today? So what did our good friend Morris Frank said that 4:05 is Plag HaMincha. So if a person prays today Mincha at 4:10, let's say, right? Really, so that means he's saying that Mincha, the time of Mincha goes past Plag, right? Because Plag is 4:05. If Mincha goes past 4:05, that means when does Arvit begin? At night. And let's say we'll be lenient to say, we'll allow you to pray Arvit, we'll consider the night in this purpose at sunset, okay? So technically, you should not pray Arvit. If you prayed Mincha after 4:05, that means you're saying that the window for Mincha goes until the evening, and Arvit begins at night. So you should not be able to pray Arvit before sunset. If you prayed Mincha after Plag, that means you're saying the window for Mincha goes until sunset. So therefore you should not be able to pray Arvit before sunset. Understand? That's why people are very careful when they make a minyan. If it's in the winter, they use a lot of times they're going to pray mincha later in the day. They can say me because they pray mincha later in the day. They're going to be careful to pray arvit at sunset because and Moreh Yosef at Tzaddik because since it's sunset,
Morning,
and then
Rabbi.
they'll consider the morning that's evening, and what was done before sunset was day. But now, where do we have this issue a lot? Is in the summer. In the summer, there is 6:30 minyans, 7 o'clock minyans, right? Friday night. What time? Now, in the summer, the plag moves a lot. But sometimes in the summer, plag mincha is 6:45. If plag mincha is 6:45, and they call the minyan for 7 o'clock, mincha 7. You ever hear of those minyanim, right? So they're davening mincha after plag, and they daven arvit before sunset, because the minyan is not over. The minyan's over by 8 o'clock. It goes from 7 to 8, and sunset is not till 8:20. So what they did was something called tarti de satri. Two things that contradicted each other. They did mincha after plag and arvit before sunset. That's a problem. That's a real problem. That's a real big problem, I would say. Now, people are lenient for certain reasons. They have certain leniencies that, but plag moves during the summer. You could check where plag moves. In the Lower East Side, there's one shul that moves with the plag throughout the summer. The rest of the shuls are standard, 7 o'clock or 6:45, and they're not moving with the plag. You know what I'm saying? So then you're fine, right? If davening mincha, right? You can't have mincha. You shouldn't have mincha after plag and arvit before sunset. That clear? Okay, so if they start, so most people they start mincha at 6:30, so that's before plag. They have before plag, and they get arvit usually after. That's usually the safe way to go is like you said. If you make the minyan like around 6:30, that could be pretty safe. But there might be times in the summer that even 6:30 is not good, because plag might get as the day gets shorter. So plag gets earlier, right? As the summer is going and the day is starting to get shorter. So then plag could be 6:25. You hear what I'm saying? After dark. All three parshiyot. And then before bed, you say this one parsha. If you daven arvit late in the evening at a late minyan and it's dark, then when you go to sleep, you only have to say the first parsha of the Shema. But if you don't pray when it's dark, then you have to repeat all three parshiyot. No, but the Shema is supposed to be at dark. So even if you prayed at sunset, but it's not clear. Is that considered evening or not regarding that mitzvah? So therefore, but I think it's recommended everyone should say every night before they go to sleep all three parshas of the Shema. That will be a good habit to have. So then you're always covered. You never miss. Just in case you.
Rabbi, I was very comfortable with your first part. I've been using it.
Say it again. What do you say about the first parsha, Mike?
Meaning Shema to go to bed, just doing the first part, not the whole Shema.
But the first part is good. It's only good enough if you prayed arvit, right? Most people are praying arvit when it's not so dark, correct? They're praying arvit like right after sunset, many places, many cities.
I understand.
Right?
Obviously, you already repeated the Shema on time, but after that's the last one, no?
Right. If you repeat it, let's say you prayed right after sunset arvit, and then when it became dark, you repeated all three parshiot. Then when you go to sleep, you only need to say one parsha because you repeated all three at dark. But if you never repeated all three at dark when it was definitely dark, then you need to say the three parshiot at some time in the evening. You see what I'm saying?
Understood. Rabbi,
Yeah. Yes.
so what's the final call on Mincha and Plag Mincha, based on what we said? To
So it's
finish Mincha before Plag?
so it seems that in the world, many people are lenient, and they have minyanim that they pray. Let's say in the summertime, people pray Arvit early. Correct. Everyone is not praying Arvit. People are making early minyan six in the Safra synagogue. What time do they daven Arvit in the summer? 6:45.
Rabbi, good
Uh,
morning.
Good morning, Aaron from Guadalupe. Morning, Aaron. So what time are they davening in the Safra? What time are they davening in the summer? They're not davening Arvit at 8:30 in the
Six
summer.
thirty, I think. 6:30.
6:30, 6:45. So it seems that many of the synagogues, Mike, are lenient that they pray Arvit.
Nice.
They pray Arvit after Plag HaMincha.
Atikao.
And they pray Mincha before Plag HaMincha. Mincha before Plag and Arvit after Plag. Is that clear, Mike? That seems to be what the synagogues are, but it would seem to be what's really ideal, because what's really ideal is that a person should really conduct himself always with one opinion. Either always he prays Arvit after sunset, or and if he does that, then he has a right to always pray Mincha up to sunset. Or if he likes to pray Ma'ariv early, if he likes to pray Ma'ariv before sunset, because he likes to make early, then he should always pray Mincha before Plag. But that's very difficult to tell people to keep to just.
So
So
it's
they don't want.
either Rabbi, it's either praying Arvid right after Plag or waiting all the way after sunset.
Right. That would seem to be right.
Yeah, it's
And
not
it seems
it's not quite feasible in our generation with the hours of if you want to pray with minyan.
right. Right, exactly. So therefore, that's why I believe many people are lenient, and therefore, because of that, many people are lenient, and sometimes they'll pray early, and sometimes they'll pray later, depending on the situation in life with minyan and so on and so forth. But the end of the day is the best. But in the same day, when you're praying, in the same time that you're praying, we should be very sensitive that I should not pray mincha. I should not pray arvit before sunset, and unless mincha was before plag. If I'm praying arvit early, that means mincha should also have been earlier. Mincha should be before plag, arvit after plag. That's what we should try to be sensitive to.
But
We
can
should.
we pray mincha after Plag
You could
if
pray
we're
mincha
late?
after.
In a case that you're late.
You could pray mincha after plag, but then you should wait. Arvit should wait until sunset, right? If I play mincha after plag and mincha, that means I am saying that the window for mincha goes until sunset. So then I should not pray arvit until the sun goes down. We should try to encourage when we pray. If we're praying mincha after plag, then we should encourage everybody to wait till sunset to pray arvit. Now there are places that are not they're not careful about it, because they say it's going to be too difficult to wait till later till sunset to go ahead and pray arvit. So therefore, there are some people that actually, because of that, that's why many minyanim in the Ashkenazic community, they actually do this leniency, that they'll actually pray mincha in the summer after plag, and arvit also is before sunset. So there seems to be a little contradictory. But because of the issue of getting the people to wait to come back for Ma'ariv later, they're not going to come back for the minyan. So that's one reason why they're lenient to actually pray the mincha after plag and arvit even before sunset. But one way to avoid the issue, if you go ahead and you make sure you daven mincha earlier in the day, let's say you daven mincha at 1:30 or depending on, or 12:30, depending on the time of the year. So then you daven mincha before plag, and then arvit. Once it's plag, you daven arvit. So therefore, there's no contradiction. Am I clear?
Yes, very. But after plag mincha, how long do we have after plag mincha to pray mincha?
I'm saying after you could pray mincha up to sunset. And really, even if you're late, you could do even a few minutes after sunset. So I think if Avadia over here talks about 13, I think 13 minutes after sunset. I think he says you could start mincha at the end. You could start at the 13
Sunset
and a half.
is shkiat hachama.
Sunset is shkiat hachama. He says you're allowed to start your mincha. A certain amount of minutes after, even a few minutes after sunset, you could go ahead and most probably you would have it, according to him, depending on the time of the year, maybe 10 minutes or so after sunset, you could pray mincha. You could start mincha if you're delayed. Now, let's continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara says the following. Rav ikla lebei geniva. Rav came to the house of Bnei Geniva. The Sali shal Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. And what did he do? He prayed Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. He prayed the Friday night davening on erev Shabbat. You see, Rav Avadia says you could pray, you could start mincha. He says up to 13 and a half minutes after sunset if you were delayed, but it's 13 and a half minutes of depending on what on how what the hour is, depending on the calculation, how we calculate the hour. So sometimes that could be maybe 10 minutes, something could be a little more than 13 and a half minutes, whatever. For sure, if you're 10 minutes after sunset, definitely you'll be safe to start mincha that time also. According to Rabbi David Feinstein, told me that you could technically pray mincha even after 15. He gave at least 20 minutes after sunset. A person could daven mincha. So I mean, technically, he told me you could up to 30 minutes after sunset. He told me if a person was delayed and he did not pray mincha, he told me you could pray up to 30 minutes after sunset. Rabbi Vadia has a shorter window of time. How long? Okay. So the Gemara says, Rav. So they came to the house of Bnei Geniva, V'soli shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat, and he prayed the Friday night davening early. He made an early Shabbat, right? Okay, 6 lines from the bottom, everybody. V'havim matzli Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba lachri de Rav. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba was praying in back of Rav. The Sayim Rav, and Rav finished his prayer. V'lo poskei l'sutei Rav Yirmiyah. When Rav finished his prayer, he didn't move back the 3 steps. Why? Because Rav Yirmiyah was praying nearby, and if he'd walk back the 3 steps, he would be entering in the space, and he would get close to Rav Yirmiyah in the 4 amot, right? He was going to come within 4 amot. So he the social distancing that we spoke, 4 amot is between 6 and 8 feet. So he between 6 and 8 feet is 4 amot. I mean, some say 4 amot. So 6 to 8 feet. 4 amot. The question is how big is an amah? An amah could be anywhere from 18 inches to 24 inches. There's difference of opinions. One opinion says it's a small. a great day is as small as 18 inches, and some say it's as large as 24 inches. So 18 inches is 1.5 feet. So 4 amot, if at 18 inches, is 6 feet. According to the opinion that amot is 2 feet, that means 4 amot is 8 feet. So it's either 6 feet. Which opinion? So I would presume for things that are biblical, we try to be more strict. That's what I would think. So when it comes to let's say the question is what would be a good example?
Rabbi,
the sukkah, yes.
as for the mincha, I heard if you do it that late, half an hour after the sunset, you cannot say the korbanot. You skip the korbanot.
Yes, so skip because it's more important to get you got to get the amida. You're running out of time. Exactly. You got to get the amida in. Exactly.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to say korbanot in the nighttime. That's what it is.
Very good. Let's say you'll say when it comes to tzitzit, how big of a tzitzit? So tzitzit. But it's interesting. He told me, Rabbi Feinstein. I think went with the 22-inch. I think when it came to tzitzit, but he didn't go for he didn't. So, but this is that's one of the areas how to measure an amah. That's a machloket. So getting back to over here. So he went ahead and he did not go back to enter the space of the other rabbi. He didn't want to go ahead and walk into the other rabbi's space, which would interrupt his prayer. And the Gemara says, what now? This velo now. Shma min atlat. We learn 3 things from the action of Rav. That what Rav did in his life, this action, we learned 3 things. What are the 3 things we learned from Rav? Mispalel adam shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. A person could pray shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. Rav, we see that Rav holds that you could pray Friday night. You can make an early minyan Friday night because Rav did it. Rav prayed the Friday night prayer. Rav was the rabbi, and he prayed the Friday night prayer early. So we see you can pray, you can make an early Shabbat, early Friday night prayer. You see, there's never a question whether you can make early Shabbat. You could always accept Shabbat early before sunset. The question is, can you pray the Arvit early? Can you pray Arvit before sunset? That's the question. There's a mitzvah called Tosfot Shabbat, the to Shabbat. That, of course, you can to Shabbat, right? The lady lights a candle. She accepts Shabbat before Shabbat. 18 minutes before Shabbat. Of course, you can add to Shabbat. But the question is, do you have a right to pray Arvit before sunset? That's the question. It's 2 different things, right? I want to make it clear. Of course, you can accept Shabbat, but could you pray Arvit before sunset? That's the question. So I'm saying, so Rav in the Gemara says that you actually have a right to pray Arvit before sunset. Not only, and that should be not only by Shabbat, it should be any time. You want to pray Arvit before sunset, as long as it's after Plaga Mincha, you're good. Rav, and just repeat the 3 parshiot of Shema later on in the evening. Right? Right, Mike? That's what we got to do. So the Gemara says, we learned 3 things. Shema mina. And we also learned Mispalel Talmid Achui Rabo. A Talmid, a student, has a right to pray in back of his master. And the Gemara is going to talk about that. We'll see tomorrow more about that, because the law says a student cannot pray in back of his rabbi. And we're gonna question this. We're gonna, there's just like a student is not supposed to stand right next to his rabbi on the same line as if he's equal to the rabbi, right? The student shouldn't pray standing right next to the rabbi, because that means that you're on this, as if you're saying you're on the same level. It's not respect, and you should know that. And Allah, what? Right? It's brought down what Ariel says also, a son and a father. But we have to look more into that, because it might depend we have to see if it makes any difference in a shul with the seats or all the situation or not. We have to see if it makes any difference, because Ariel said the Chaya Adam in the Ashkenaz rabbi says we have to see what the Sfaradim say on it. Says, and I could be Rabbi Yosef also, the son should not stand next to their father when they pray. Amidah. Why? Because as if you're saying you're equal to you're on the same level as your father. Your father's in a different level. You're not equal to your father. You have to show that respect. You don't stand and pray the Amidah right next to your father. That's what it would seem. Again, we have to research it a little more. Same way that you don't stand next to your rabbi as if, let's say the rabbi, a lot of times, maybe to help that halacha, the rabbi's in the front of the synagogue. So he's in the front, so no one's standing in the front with the rabbi, so therefore there's no problem, right? No one gets into the issue. But if he's not in the front, and you shouldn't walk up and stand, pray the Amidah right next to the rabbi. Give the respect. Yes. Very good. So for sure, okay, that's a good question. So if we look in the Shulchan Aruch to address Ariel's question, Ariel has a question. Is it your rabbi specifically you shouldn't be standing next to when you pray, or is it any rabbi? So now the law is there's something called kavod Talmid Chacham. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to give honor to a Talmid Chacham. You're supposed to stand up for a Talmid Chacham. When a Talmid Chacham walks by, when he comes within your space, when he comes within Dalet Amot, not if it comes within, your father walks into the room, you stand up. You don't wait till it comes into your Dalet Amot. But when your mother walks into the room, you stand up. You don't wait till it comes to Dalet Amot. But when the rabbi comes into when your rabbi, a rabbi, any Talmid Chacham, if he's a Torah scholar, if he's within your space, if he comes within your space, what's your space? Social distance space. That's 6 to 8 feet. If he comes in your 6 to 8 feet, right, Morris? You have a mitzvah to stand up. You have a mitzvah to stand up. So you have a mitzvah to give Tavach Chachamim. So Ariel said, would that also say that I can't stand right next to him and pray right next to him? Or do we say that it's only if it's your main rabbi or great rabbi of great prominence that's like a leading rabbi? So in the Shulchan Aruch, this halacha is found in Siman Sadik, Sif Chav Dalet. So Siman Sadik, Sif Chav Dalet, it says like this. It says, Lo Yispalel B'Sad Rabo. You're not supposed to pray on the side of your rabbi. Now he doesn't. So the Mishnah Berurah here does not clarify. So who is your rabbi? What rabbi are we talking about? So the Chafetz Chaim brings down from the Lechem Chamudot to Pri Megadim, the rabbi that you learned the most Torah from, the rabbi that taught you the most, meaning you learned a lot. Ariel knows a lot. The rabbi that taught him the most, that's the rabbi. Or if the rabbi is the Gadol Hadar, if the rabbi is Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, if Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, even though he might not have taught you most of your Torah, but if that's the opinion of the Chafetz Chaim. But if it's not your rabbi that you learned a lot of most of your Torah from, and it's not the leading rabbi, then you're not restricted. Then it's not called disrespectful if you would stand next to him. That's what the Chafetz Chaim holds. What does the Yalkut Yosef say? So we have the Yalkut Yosef opened over here in Siman Sadik Aleph. And by the way, make sure when your parents walk into the room, make sure you give them that respect. Sometimes people don't stand up for their parents when they walk into the room, right? I mean, I presume everybody here does. But I think there's a phenomenon that sometimes people don't stand up for their parents. And a lot of times the parents are mochel. They say you don't have to stand up. So I believe don't take that mechila. Your parents tell you you don't have to stand up for them. Stand up for them. You get a big mitzvah. Don't lose that mitzvah. The father should educate the kids to give them the mitzvah. It's very healthy for kids to have that respect for the father. the fathers are not supposed to overdo it on their kids. There's a balance. The people, yeah, right, not to walk in and out. Every time they walk in and out, the father could be mochel that every time I walk in and out, you don't have to. But sometimes you should. The father walks in, the father leaves. That you should show that respect. And in Simon Tzaddik, we have here Simon Tzaddik. Maybe tomorrow we'll look a little bit more to look up what we'll find the Yalkut Yosef say about. Maybe it should be all the way at the end here. Simon Tzaddik.
Rabbi,
Yes.
it's very hard with this mitzvah in the Corona time because you're home all day. You're in and out from rooms or in and out from the yard and back. It's not like they see you in the morning, in the evening, and before bed.
Right. So then when they see you for the first time in the morning, make sure. For sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You should get them. I'm giving you a mitzvah, and maybe explain to the kids this is a mitzvah. You get a mitzvah when you stand up for your mother. You get a mitzvah when you stand up for your father. It's a big mitzvah. It's respect, and you want to train them, and you're telling them you're training them not because you're worried about your honor. You're doing it for them. They should. This is for their benefit. That they should give respect to their parents. Understand? In the Yalkut Yosef, when the midst of kibbut avim, right? There's beautiful stuff in the Yalkut Yosef regarding kibbut avim. So I would recommend everybody should learn the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Yalkut Yosef, Chelik Bey, the second portion about kibbut avim. So he says, forbidden for a father to be too tough on his sons and to be very exact on his honor. This is a Perek Yud Beis. He says, and to overburden them, because then they might fail, and then they're not doing respect for you. Be mochel on your kavod. He says, and he says the parents should not ask for children to do things that are too tough for the children to do, because then the children don't do it, and then they get, and you don't want them to get punished for not listening. So he says that's what he says by one of the things that he says. He talks about many different interesting issues here. Just wanted to see if I find a little bit, because he's definitely going to talk about standing up for your parents. That's definitely going to be found over here. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, maybe tomorrow we'll I don't want to hold people up, but maybe we'll see tomorrow more about the responsibility of standing up for one's father and so forth. Let's see. Oh, here it is. See, don't give up so fast, right? So here he goes. He talks about Perek Beis, Siman Reish Mem. Chayiv Adam lekavod. The person is obligated to stand to honor his parents from the time you see your parents walk in. The time you see your parents, and you have to stand up full standing. It's not good enough to stand like a little bit. You ever see this? Sometimes you go like this. You ever see this? Right? That's not enough, right, Shmuel? I get 2 on the deal when I say Shmuel. And you're not supposed to sit down until your father or your mother sit down in their place or come to their place. You have to wait until they come to their place. If they walk into the room, they about to go sit, wait till they sit down. No, rabbi is just as long as they're within your dalet amot. As long as they're in your social space. Now, until they sit down, or you can't see them anymore. Let's say they went wherever they went, or they went to another room. But let's say your parents stop for a moment to rest for a moment, and they plan on continue walking. You have to wait. You have to stand. The obligation to stand for your father is when your father enters a shul. Your father walks into a shul and you're in the shul, you got to stand up. Your father is not only in the house, your father walks into the house. In the shul, he walks to the shul. Or to an event, anything, you have to stand up. Your father, you're sitting on a bus. Your father walks in, your mother walks in. Morris, you got to stand up until they get to the place to sit. And of course, now, and he says, when you stand up for your parents, you can't hold on to something when you stand up for your parents. Because if you're holding on to the table, that means you're leaning like this, that means that's not called real standing. You have to let go. You understand? You have to really be standing. Don't hold on to the wall when you're standing up for your parents. Of course, if you need to lean a little bit, as long as you could stand without the leaning, meaning to say, if you hold on to something, it's only considered that you're really holding on to it if they would take that thing away, you would fall. But if I just stand like this and I touch the table, that's not really called supporting me, and therefore it's not called I'm sitting. If I'm leaning against it, if they take that away, I would fall. That's like called sitting. Is that clear? You know what I'm saying? Now, father-in-law, that's a great question. You're supposed to honor your father-in-law and your mother-in-law. So the question is, this level or not is a good question. We'll have to see. Now, you're obligated to stand for your father and mother. By the way, this is the Sephardi opinion. Every time they enter the room and you see them, even 100 times a day. That is the opinion of who? It's not a universal opinion. That's the opinion of Moron, Yosef Cairo, in the Shulchan Aruch. 100 times a day. So Yosef HaTzadik. So your question about the corona situation. And he says the din is like, now he says, the minig b'nei Ashkenaz, then he turns to the minig of the Ashkenazim, that a student does not stand in front of his rabbi only twice a day. Does a student have to stand up when his rabbi walks in? The rabbi, the Rosh Yeshiva, walks into the Beit Midrash every moment. Every time the students have to stand up? No. Only in Shachrit and Arvit. The morning and in the evening. Once in the morning and once at night. But it's interesting, he was talking about honoring parents. He says you can stand up. Then he says when it comes to the rabbis, the students, but Ashkenazim, they are lenient. Only once in the morning and once at night. Okay. And then he says, and we'll end with the next thing. He says, a father could be mochel and say, if a father says, my son should not have to get up and stand for me at all, even if he doesn't stand, even if it says you don't have to stand even twice a day. It's mochel. It's allowed. The father could do it, but nevertheless, if the father and mother walks into the room, he should still get up a little bit in that case to show some sort of respect. Okay, I want to wish everyone. Now, also he says, if the father was mochel from the son, that the son does not need to stand up for the father. But if there's other people in the room that don't know that the father was mochel, then the son has to stand up. Because then you're being disrespectful. The other guy doesn't know that your father was mochel. You know your father was mochel. But if the other guy doesn't know your father was mochel, and your father walks in and you didn't stand up for your father, he doesn't know that your father. You hear that, Morris? Okay. And he says it's not proper that a child should ask his parents that, they Daddy, mommy, can you be mochel that I never should have to stand up for you? Don't, because you could ask your parents, to be mochel in certain situations that if I don't stand up for you. But nevertheless, it's very good that people should be mochel on the kavod. Parents should be mochel on the kavod. Because you don't want, if the parents are going to be particular, parents are going to be very strict. You have to stand up for me all the time. Sometimes the kid might not stand up, and then the kid is doing a sin. So you never want your kid to do a sin by not standing up for you. So therefore, he says, don't be so strict on your kids. Nevertheless, he says, it's not, I think the bottom line is a child should not ask his parents, Daddy, Mommy, could you forgive me that I never have to stand up for you? I don't think that should be done. I think you should say, please forgive me. You can forgive me that I shouldn't have to stand up for you all the time. And would it be all right whenever I stand up for you, would that be fine? And whenever I don't stand up for you, you're mochel. That I think would be the way to go. The way to go is to always tell your parents, please, Daddy, Mommy, and especially the Sfardim that he says 100 times a day, you got to stand up for your father and mother. Mike, you heard that? 100 times a day, you got to stand up for your father and mother. If they walk into the room, they walk out of the room every time they walk in. So obviously you should say to your parents, Daddy, Mom, please forgive me, mochel, if I don't stand up, that I don't have to stand up for you every time you walk in. And of course there'll be times that I will stand up. Of course, and that's what I would recommend. How does that sound, everybody? Okay.
Great. Rabbi, Mike, show us a little bit. Come on, don't be keeping a secret for yourself there.
There's nothing to see now. I'm at the airport.
Oh, you coming back?
Yes.
He was by the holy kever of the tzaddik of Yitzchak Abu Chutzera.
That's right.
Yeah. You could do Zoom.
You can still light the candle. It's still Yudalej Shvat.
Okay, he says you can still light the candle, and you can still learn, say brachot the Shema, and he prayed for all of us. Baruch Hashem.
Amen.
The holy tzaddik.
Amen.
Everyone should pray for each other. We all need help. We all need help from Shemayim. The God should protect all of us. Everyone has needs in life. So, and we pray in the plural. Baruch Aleinu, Refeinu Hashem, Hashivenu of, everything's in the plural. We always have to be thinking of others when we pray. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a great day.
Yes, Yosef, we saw one of your
Thank you.
tzaddikim in the back. Okay, say hello to him. Yes, I want to say hello to your tzaddik. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Have a safe trip, Michael.
Say that. Yes, Yosef, tell your son I say hello.
Rabbi, have a good day.
Good
Say
day.
hello.
You too.
Benny.
Take care. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye.
Say hello, Benny. Okay.
He's busy. Take care. Have a great day, Yosef.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.